Welcome to Oracle Apex Office Hours. And today we're doing Ask the Apex Team Anything. And as you can see on camera with me today, we have a bunch of the Apex team ready to answer some of your questions and discuss a little bit more fun stuff about Apex. This is our last Office Hours session of 2022. And having said that, go to the next slide, 2022 in celebration. Yay. I mean, I'm pretty excited. I mean, I don't do the whole, party thing that well, but bottom line is it's the end of 2022. And this is the last Apex Office Hours that we're hosting until next year, which isn't that far away. But in retrospect, we delivered two major Apex releases this year. We're very excited about all those new features that have come into these new releases. We're very excited to be able to make, conversation about what the various features can deliver to you and your users. And I mean, just in retrospect here's 22.1, right? A bunch of screenshots, PWA service worker, the approvals and unified task list for workflow, readable application export in JSON and YAML formats. I mean, those are just the tip of the iceberg of what came out almost a year ago, feels like, right? At the beginning of 22, Apex 22.1 came out, May, I think it was. And from there, just not too long ago, about a month ago, we had 22.2 released. And it just brought all kinds of new features for the developer for improving our workflows as developers and being able to deliver features to your users with a lot less hassle. I mean, invoke API processes, application search, the landmark region support for accessibility, you name it. There's a whole bunch of features that came with both of these releases just in the last year. And we're super excited about that. We also had 42 customer success stories in 2022. Right there, you should be able to see some familiar names like Siemens and Wilson Truck Lines. There's just so many various quotes available on apex.oracle.com, and at the specific links there from the top level site of oracle.com/customers and the company name, you can read up their various quotes, there's scenarios, there's particular use cases that they're successful in using Apex to solve problems with. And it's just very exciting for us to continue to do this. And we're going to be ramping it up in 2023 with even more customer success stories. In 2022, we welcomed FoEX, and over to Shakib for a little bit more on that.
Thanks, Jason. Hi, everyone. I'm incredibly excited to announce that last month, Oracle completed its acquisition of FoEX. And I'm very thrilled to welcome Peter, Matt, and the entire FoEX team to the Apex family. I know that we're going to be able to do some incredible things. Like this is such a perfect fit, and I really look forward to working with the entire team and really the entire, really delivering the components or whatever capabilities we need in Apex to make it even better. I want to pass it on to Peter to just say a few words.
Hi, thanks, Shakib. It's an honor, and we are all very thrilled to be part of the team, and that the acquisition is closed now. So since the start of November, we are actually working in the Apex team, and we are trying to build new and shiny things, not on the outside but on the inside now. So yeah, it's very exciting, and I don't want to get anyone's hopes too high up, but we will try our best as usual.
Hey, thanks so much, Peter. I just wanted to say also that there's more questions a little bit later for Peter about the future of FOSS plugins and so on. So just stay tuned. Right, back to you, Jason.
Great, thank you. And yeah, welcome, Peter and team. It's so great to have you on board. We're very excited what you're going to be able to bring to the product from the inside, as you state. Okay, next in the announcements, this year we did 28 office hour sessions. I mean, that's a huge number. We did 1 Africa community session, 4 Portuguese sessions, 5 Spanish sessions, 18 global English sessions. I mean, we hosted to over 7,000 live attendees and 54,000 plus views for all sessions in 2022. So, I mean, that's significant for the growth of the Apex community. And it's just indicative of just how much actual attention on the outside that we're getting on the inside for the things that we're doing for Apex. And it's just really exciting. From there, coming into the new year, we're going to be doing business innovations with Oracle Apex. We're also going to have our first Apex office hours for the JPAC region in English, and we're going to be hosting Apex office hours in Romanian. So, I mean, that's going to be really exciting. I can't wait to be a participant on that one, so I can kind of be a fly on the wall and hear about how the Romanians talk about Apex in their natural language or main language there, because I'm just an English guy. And I'm from Canada. I'm supposed to know some French. Vincent laughs at me that I'm a terrible representative of Canada, but I'm mostly English, as you know, so I do my best with some of these other foreign languages. But anyway, in any case, we're going to move on here because today's particular topic is Ask the Apex Team Anything. We had over 50 submitted questions. We did have to shortlist it for the time that's allotted for this office hours. We're going to try to stop it right at the top of the hour here today. But to get things started, here are some product questions that I'm going to turn over to Mark to answer. He's going to start right there with number 1, 2, and 3. Over to you, Mark.
All right, thank you, Jason. So first up, how do we plan new features for Apex and what is our long-term roadmap for Apex? A number of different factors determine what we include in Apex. First and foremost, of course, we listen to our customers and our partners, listen to the requirements and their problems, and we meet with them on a regular basis, in person, via Zoom, and a lot more, again, this year in person at conferences. So it was really great meeting many of you at conferences like Kscope and CloudWorld. So we listen to customers, try to understand their requirements and work on the features and making Apex better. A lot of input is also coming through the Ideas app. We already touched on that a little bit. So we do pay close attention to the Ideas app, and with each release, we kind of stepped up the number of ideas that we've implemented. Many new ideas came with 22.2 and already have a bunch planned for 23.1. We also, of course, have many internal customers. They are the GBUs. Those are the teams that work on all the pandemic apps, but many other vertical industries as well. And they standardize on Apex, and they also have a lot of requirements for Apex. So we're closely working with them. And of course, also with the teams looking after the Cerner projects. And then, of course, there's ApexOracleCorp.com. That is our internal development instance. There's over 5,000 different teams and workspaces. So a lot of feedback is coming from there as well. And then, of course, we also meet with and consult with the analysts, Forrester, Gartner. We meet with them on a regular basis, brief them on Apex and learn from them what they'd like to see in a low-code platform. We do have a statement of direction. Oops, and I'm trying to copy this here into chat. When you go to apexoracle.com, you can look at our statement of direction or roadmap. I put the link here into chat, and you can read up on what we've planned for future releases there. Now, the next question is about 2 releases a year. And taking a little bit of a step back on that one, we used to ship releases, I guess, when they were ready on a pretty irregular basis. We had, I guess, a year and a half or so for Apex 5.1. And then we made the decision to move to a fixed release schedule and use feature branches. That means we can now work on features for as long as it takes until they're ready. Workflow is one example, right? This is a multi-cycle project that will be completely merged in once it is ready and not be driven by any specific dates. So having this feature branch-based development allows us to really work on features for as long as it takes and then bring them in when they're ready. And with that, we were able to release on a fixed schedule. We're releasing twice a year, typically in spring and the fall. And that has many benefits. It allows us to bring out new features, small enhancements more quickly, respond to bugs more quickly. But it also makes it a lot easier to decide on whether or not to push a feature, right? If you have to wait for a year or longer, and then it's a much harder decision to make than, well, 6 months, we can have this feature baked for a little bit longer and then ship within the next 6 months. So that's why we ship twice a year and how we switch to a fixed release schedule. And then lastly, on QA. So QA involves a lot more than just feature testing, right? The release of a product like Apex goes through a lot of different steps and sign-offs and reviews. It starts with writing feature specs and having these feature specs be reviewed by our development peers, by our PM team. Next, the actual coding also involves a lot of peer reviews and code reviews. At the end of a cycle or at the end of our active development, we have our accessibility reviews, security reviews, and sign-offs. And once the feature is complete on our end, it's being handed over to our QA team, who learn about the feature, who write a feature spec and feature test automations. It's being handed over to our doc team. So there's lots more testing happening there. And then once we are ready for presenting it to, I guess, a broader audience, we have what's called the UAT, user acceptance testing. And that is where we take this large Apex Oracle.com instance that I talked about and clone that instance and upgrade it to the next release about 2 months ahead of our actual production release. So everybody in the company has a couple of weeks to actually kick the tires, try out the new features, and verify that the applications still work as they did prior to the upgrade. And then as we get closer to the actual release, we share a preview with the whole audience, with the whole community externally. We upgrade apexoracle.com to the next version of Apex, and everyone in the world can try out the new features there, provide yet more feedback, and then a few weeks after that, we release. So lengthy process, and this time, for the first time, we managed to ship Apex on-premise and on the cloud for the first time. All right, that's it for this slide. Back to you, Jason.
On this slide, we have 4 through 7, starting with, or for Mark, but Peter, you're going to do the first one, I believe.
Yeah. I'm happy to answer the first one. The thing is we're new in the team, and everyone is helping us to review the ideas and concepts of what we did in FoEX. And then we try to map it towards the Apex product plan and see, what's a good fit there, what could be done otherwise, what ideas can we take from that and do better, right? Because it's not about trying to replicate whatever we did before. It's about, bringing the Apex product further ahead, right? And then add things there. As for the open source plugins, they're still available. And you can find all that information actually on oracle.com/FoEX, which is the main landing hub. There's some links. I'm going to further information. But yeah, no worries. Nothing's getting lost. We are full of ideas, and there's a bunch of discussions going on and brainstorming. So stay tuned there.
Right, thanks, Peter. I guess I can take the next questions. And first, though, there's a question on chat, Peter. How can they get your cool jackets? So people like your hoodie there. Very nice.
Oh, it's the Matt Nolan special edition. I gotta say,
that's nice.
Gifted it to the whole team.
Oh man, I gotta have a word for some. All right, will SQL Workshop be deprecated? It will not, definitely not. I think this question came out of some sessions at Cloud World, where there was some talk about how we're going to closely integrate Apex with SQL Developer Web, which means we will provide a link from Apex SQL Workshop that directly takes you to SQL Developer Web. SQL Developer Web is part of Oracle Data Service, part of ORTS, and also part of Autonomous. So if you're running Apex on Autonomous, or if you're running Apex and ORTS on-premise, you will find a link in future versions that take you from Apex directly to your current schema in SQL Developer Web. That doesn't change anything about us, including SQL Workshop, though. A lot of customers find it very valuable to have basic database functionality directly in Apex in the same context as your development. Lots of customers write their pure SQL code there, compile their pure SQL code there. If you're on a hosted instance like apexoracle.com, you do not have direct SQL access. So that is typically the only way for you to actually look at your tables, look at your objects, create new objects, compile pure SQL code. So definitely not going away, but there's going to be a link that makes it easier to switch over to SQL Developer Web for some advanced functionality. The next up, tree region Apex, that's still very much on our roadmap. We have a very dated tree region Apex today. We definitely want to modernize it. It's not going to be part of 23.1, that much we know, but it's definitely on our roadmap and will come at some point. And then last question on this slide, are you planning to have a beginner's mode for Page Designer where you see only the very most common features, input fields? We actually started out having that, right? We had like, I guess, a view of Page Designer that kind of limited things to just what we deemed to be the most essential ones, but that never really satisfied everybody, right? Like everybody kind of looks for different things, different fields, different attributes, and we found that everyone really always switched to just getting every attribute shown, right? So there wasn't really much of a point in having like these two different modes. What we are looking at, though, and what we continue doing with each release is to simplify and clean up and streamline the UI of Page Designer and make it just a little bit more friendly to use and rearrange things a little bit, make it just a more streamlined experience.
All right, thank you, Mark. On to the next set of questions. This one's regarding connectivity. There's only one. How can I connect Apex to other tools or databases? And I think, Carsten, you ready for this one?
Yeah, sure. And it's actually a long question, right? So that is a nice question. I could perfectly start talking now and occupy the rest of the office hours, but I think others wouldn't like that so much. So let me try to compress the answer a bit. So basically, it's about how to connect Apex to other tools, databases, let me put it, to other systems, right? And the most common way to connect to other tools, database, application system today is REST. And in Apex, for the last 5 years, we built out the support for Apex to interact with external services more and more. So, and especially declarative support. So when I look into the past, programmatic support to talk to external REST APIs is there for ages. The Apex Web Service package, which allows you to offer a PL/SQL code which talks to another system, you can do that, I think, Apex 3.something or even before. With Apex 18, we introduced REST data sources, which allow you to declaratively configure an external REST source and to create reports, forms, calendars, charts, and all sorts of Apex components directly on top of these data sources. That support was built out over time. So we got read-write support with 19, interactive grid was added with 19.2, LOVs were added with 19.2, 22 REST source synchronizations came in, plugins were added, and the plugins in REST data sources is pretty interesting because it allows a plugin developer to build a custom connector, which brings that whole stuff to a new level. The author of the plugin, the connector, can implement all that logic which is required to talk to a very specific sort of system. And an application of these connectors is available for a few weeks now. Together with MTAG in Germany, we built out a connector for OData REST APIs. And OData is a standard which is heavily used by SAP or Microsoft systems. So you can download that connector from the Oracle Apex GitHub repository. It comes along with a sample application. So just download the sample application, install it, you will have the application and the connector in your Apex instance. And then you can try these things out and can use that connector to connect to your OData sources. Other connectors are possible in the future, right? So there will, in the long run, we will see lots of connectors here, which will allow to connect Apex to all sorts of REST APIs, right? But REST is not the only way to talk to another system. Good old database links have been working for how many years? I don't know, right? But they are still working today. So you can use any sort of database link in your Apex application also and talk to a remote Oracle database, or using heterogeneous services also to non-Oracle databases. There is REST-enabled SQL, right, which is ORDS functionality, and with REST-enabled SQL, ORDS provides a very special REST endpoint, which is able to execute also every SQL statement or PL/SQL block. Well, Apex has native support for that. You can hook up a REST-enabled SQL reference in your Apex workspace and then talk to these REST endpoints directly from your Apex application. And since 22.1, it's even possible to use that together with a remote MySQL database. However, the MySQL database has to run on the Oracle Cloud. But if that's the case, then you can use the native support for REST-enabled SQL to connect your Apex instance to that MySQL database. I think that is a broad area of functionality, which are really now just scratched the surface of it. And if we discuss it even longer, we would find more pieces of functionality to talk about. But I think these things should give you a pretty good overview of what you can do in Apex, right? My recommendation is whenever you can use declarative functionality, use it. You're using Apex to avoid coding. So if you have the chance to use a REST data source to talk to your external API, use a REST data source. Use the code only when, for whatever reason, the declarative feature doesn't suit your needs. And yeah, I think that's something to have a look into. As I was saying, depending on what systems you would like to talk to, detailed answers could look much different. But at the end of the day, in a general way, that's what I would like to add or to respond to that question. Feel free to raise detailed questions in the chat. We will see how far we get to answer them.
Thank you so much, Carsten. Great explanation for all of it. It's really a nebulous thing. You're absolutely right. There's just so many different third-party tools to connect to. They all have their different APIs. There are all the different processes required to even connect to them. And then there's all the security behind the database being able to make that communication happen in the first place. So it's quite a large topic. Thank you. All right, so on to charts with Hillary. How can multiple tasks per row work on a Gantt chart?
And firstly, thank you very much to Andres, who raised the question and also posted an associated post on the Einstein or on the external forum. Massively helpful, and thanks for flagging that. We did have a little issue with one of the examples in the sample charts app. So multiple tasks per row is supported, but the particular example on page 3 of the app just needed a little tweaking, and that may have confused folks thinking that the functionality didn't work. We have addressed that, and last night we pushed out a revised version of the sample charts app on GitHub. So if you go to the gallery in your workspace right now, you can install that latest version. And one of the tweaks that we've also made is to ensure that a start and end date is set by default, so you can actually visually see that the multiple task per row option works. Makes for a better user experience and avoids any confusion. And the hosted version of the app on apex.oracle.com had actually underlying outdated data for 2019. So if you tried to use dates for the 2022 timeframe, nothing would ever be returned. We've also rectified that. So thanks again for taking the time to raise the question.
That's great. Thanks, Hillary. It's worth noting, I guess, I think it's since 22.1 that we had, or 21.2, that we had greater simplified gallery installs where you no longer had to wait for new versions of Apex to be released to get the new sample apps. We're able to do it live, like in real time, and you can download the latest and greatest. That's great. Absolutely.
And one little point to add on the charts, we do actually hope to include some enhancements, particularly in the Gantt charts, to take advantage of some of the new functionality that came with more recent versions of JET. And our charts are based on the JET data visualization components.
All right, good to know. Thank you for the detail. Moving on into workflows with Ralph. Ralph, you want to read each question out as you answer them, please?
Yeah, sure, Jason. So how to create potential owners for multiple levels of approvers? That's a very good question. And we answered that question already a few weeks ago in a blog, and I post a link of that blog to the chat. So that, has like detailed instructions, step-by-step instructions on how to build out a multi-level approval for a travel request use case. But let me highlight a few of the features that we have in the approval component to make that possible. So the potential owners can be determined by either, you put a static value there, like a username, if you know exactly that a user needs to approve a task or can work on a task. But we also have the capability to determine the potential owners from a SQL query or from a PL SQL procedure. And in that specific use case, we have the levels of approvals externalized in a table. And basically what you can do with that is you can, depending on your system of record or your task parameter, you can determine who needs to approve that. So that makes it very flexible and dynamic to determine the potential owners. And that is very useful when it comes to those multi-level approvals. What you also need there is you somehow need capability to chain the tasks together, because you want to look at them maybe as a sequence and monitor how the multi-level approval progressed. For that, you can use the task parameters, or you also externalize that in your system of record. All of that is highlighted in the blog post we put out there. Second question, is parallel approval possible? Simple answer, no, not at the moment, but we have support for what we call approval patterns on our roadmap. And approval patterns also would include a more, declarative and visual kind of a specification for multi-level approvals like management chains. Management chain is a typical example for multi-level approval, or sequential approvals, or like mentioned here, the parallel approval. So that is on the roadmap. Number 3, is it possible to modify the existing package to customize? So I understand that question in a way that that the artifacts that we generate as part of the approvals component, can those be customized? Absolutely yes, and that is intended. So where do we generate? So when you look at the unified task list, when you create a page, and you can create a unified task list from the create page wizard, that is just basically, a template that you can use to get started, so you don't have to build out something on your own. It lets you quickly start and build a unified task list. But what you see there when you actually go into the unified task list, those are all standard Apex, regions reports that are in there, and we use the search capability in there. But you can, go in there and customize it to your needs. Or if you want to build your own unified task list from scratch, you can use the public views that we publish, or you can use the streaming table function that is coming with the API to build up your own unified task list. Same for the task details page. That is just a template that we generate out of the box to get the developer quickly started. But again, developer can definitely go in there and tweak the page to the requirements of the specific use case. Okay, that was it from my end.
Great. Thank you so much, Ralph, for those details. Really appreciate it. We love the new workflow functionality in Apex. Can't wait for the latest and greatest new stuff coming next year and forward.
Sure.
Okay. On to some interactive grid questions, and we're going to have Mark answer some of these. You ready, Mark?
All right, sure. Thanks, Jason. Yeah, so will you harmonize IG with IR? That's interactive grids and interactive reports. Yes, that is a plan. Interactive reports, where and are still the report region designed for reporting. Interactive grids, primary use case is for editing data. They have very similar UIs, and we understand they should be more consistent. So we are working on more consistent dialogues, more consistent action menus. So this is coming. No target date yet, but we're working towards that goal. Then for number 2, Ronnie, is that something that you could take on? I want to put you on the spot there, but.
Yes, thank you, Mark. How can I keep selected data after filtering or searching for something? You can do that because you have access to the model that is behind the interactive grid, but you have to handle with JavaScript. My tip is please download the sample app for interactive grids. And there is a page with multiple selection. And on that page, you find a dynamic action that can, and in this dynamic action, there's some JavaScript code that helps you with this problem.
Yeah, right. Great. Thank you, Ronnie. Then the third question, can you dynamically recalculate the row and columns if a value in the editable fields is modified? That is something that we heard a lot, and that's clearly something that is still missing to be available declaratively. There are ways to do this programmatically, but yeah, there are ways to do this via JavaScript. I'll share a link in chat here in a moment, and the recommendation is, though, to upgrade to at least 22.1, 21.1 to have the latest version of our integrated JavaScript libraries available that make that easier.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that also too, Ronnie. Great explanation. Next, we have friendly URLs with one question to Patrick. How does the apexpage.getURL function work with friendly URLs?
So in general, that function returns your friendly URL if your application is set up to use friendly URLs. The original question was about if you use getURL within a batch job, for example, outside of an Apex application, or if you use it within an Apex page rendering, page processing, it behaves slightly different. So in the case, if you use it within an Apex application in a render or processing, it will just return a relative URL without the domain name, for example. So if you want to use that result in a send email process, for example, it wouldn't be a complete URL, and you would have to add the domain name up front. If you use the same function within an external batch job or in SQL Plus or somewhere else, you're really getting a fully qualified URL containing the domain name, because this function was designed for these different two use cases. If it's external of Apex, you probably want to have a URL which can be used. If it's used within an Apex application, it's not needed because the browser will complete the domain name. But I think the use case is definitely there, that sometimes you need a fully qualified domain name. So I would suggest go to the Ideas app, file a feature idea to add a new attribute to this getURL function that you want to have a full URL, and we will make it happen.
It's great. I love friendly URLs. We now have PWA with Vincent. 2 questions. Over to you.
All right. So first one is it possible to make App Builder SQL Workshop and team development in the same PWA application? And the answer is that this is actually on the roadmap. This is something that we want to do eventually for the Apex Builder as a whole. And as you know, the Apex Builder consists of multiple applications, but the goal for this idea is that it would function as a single PWA. And in order to do this, what we have to do is basically allow application groups to work as a single PWA. So this is on the roadmap. It will happen eventually. And the builder is one example, but we want to also allow customers to do this on their own group of applications. Second question is, when I open any PWA app on mobile after some idle time, it shows a black screen for 2 to 5 seconds and then opens the application. Is there a way to avoid this? So it depends on a few things, of course, the connection speed and also the performance of the application itself. So, but of course, it's not ideal to have even a 2 seconds black screen when you open the application. I totally agree. Fortunately, there are a few things we can do. For example, we can show a splash screen or some kind of logo and background while we wait for the application. It is something we can provide using a link tag on the page template. Unfortunately, it's not declarative right now. So I will paste the snippet of code that is required to make a splash screen on iOS. And hopefully in the future, we can make that declarative. It's worth noting that on Android or desktop, the manifest and the PWA properties will show a splash screen, but it is currently not possible on iOS declaratively. These 2 questions for PWA were sourced for this office hours, but we have a new sample app for PWA reference that we will put out soon with over 15 to 20 questions that we're answering. And these 2 questions will be part of it, along with many other PWA questions.
Oh, great. Good. No, and that'll just show up in the gallery at some point, and we're going to have social media notification of that.
That's correct.
All right. Fantastic. Looking forward to it. All right. Next section on development. We're turning it back over to Shakib to answer some of these questions.
All right. Hey, thanks so much, Jason. So the first question here is there any way to work on the same application or the same page of an application together? So there's a few ways you can do this. Let's say you're working in a single instance of Apex, right? You can work on the same page. Actually, you can have 2 developers. You can have more than one, more than 2 developers work on the same page, provided you're not modifying the same component, right? Or really the same attribute. I probably wouldn't recommend like really working on the same page together immediately. Maybe if you're working on a package change, that's probably okay, and someone's working on the actual page. But let's say you're working on the same application, right? One thing you can do, there's a functionality in Apex called locking pages. And right now you can go to any page, there's a little lock icon, you hit that lock icon, you put in a comment like, hey, I'm adding a chart to this page, whatever it is, hit the save button, and now you're the only developer that could go and modify that page. So there's two things you can do here, right? You're locking it so that you're the only one that can modify it, but you're also signaling to others that, hey, this page is in use, so don't go and try to modify it. In a future release of Apex, we hope to bring the ability to lock all sorts of components. You can lock individual shared components, for example, to really signal that you're working on them and that no one else can make those changes. Question 2, how can I automate the changes for certain pages after creation? So if I think of this like I think the underlying question is something about, hey, I have to make 5 changes and I need to make them to a ton of my pages, right? Maybe 6 pages, 10 pages, whatever it might be. So currently, we don't have this type of automation in the way it's sort of like suggested in the question, but there are a number of ways you can use tools in Apex to quickly apply the same change in multiple places, multiple items, multiple pages, multiple components at the same time. So one, there's component attributes in shared components, and if you modify those apply to the all the plugins or all the items that are using those component attributes. Second, you can use this functionality of Apex called cross-page utilities. This is from the application builder. Click on utilities, and that provides you a lot of pages that provide you with grid edit for different capabilities, or different attributes of your application or different attributes of your pages. For example, if you want to go and modify all the titles of your page, you can do that. And finally, let's say you wanted to go and modify a bunch of regions on your page. In Page Designer, you can go and do multi-select. So go ahead and select, X number of items. And if the attributes are shared, they'll just appear as one value. But if the attributes are different, then you'll see a little small delta icon and you can fill in whatever value you like and they'll be applied to all of them. So a few ways you can sort of automate, not really automate, but you can do this in a little bit easier way.
Page Designer just keeps getting better and better, as well as Apex Builder. All right, on to some more general questions. And Shakib, you're up again on the hook for these 3. Back to you.
So where can I find Apex training, right? And there's a lot of resources for you right now. The one I would highly recommend, and I would say this for really all the answers here, all the questions here, go to apex.oracle.com. And that website has a wealth of information, resources, learning material, and so on. So there's even a tab, it's called, Learn. And then within that, there's a guide for getting started. There's certifications and training. We have hands-on labs and other content. I also do want to emphasize that we recently launched the Apex Developer Foundations learning path. This is a completely free course you can take. I believe it's about 3.5 hours. And it'll get you the foundations of Apex. And we are working on additional courses, maybe more in-depth, learning paths that you can go and get a little bit more further. There's also Apex certifications, and we're also planning to improve those along the way. Another great way to get free training is really by either doing the hands-on labs and watching the videos of these office hours. So oftentimes, if there's a feature you might be working on and need some REST capabilities, right? Well, we've done a few office hours that explain in depth, really from the experts, from the members of our development team on how to do specific things with that feature. So I encourage those. And also there's a lot of community courses as well, a lot of community videos. So I just encourage you to sort of use YouTube or other video platforms to kind of find content. Question 2, how often does the Apex team connect with customers? I like to think that we connect with customers as often as we can. And some on our team do this every day, right? We talk to customers on a daily basis. We work with customers. You may not realize, but actually there's a lot of Apex developers within the company as well that we interface with, and they're also our customers. I think one of the best ways that we've connected with customers in the past is through in-person conferences and in-person meetings. And as things slowly get back to normal, there's more and more in-person events, in-person conferences. And I think you're going to see a wider presence of the Apex team attend these conferences and really share, the message of Apex in low code. In 2022, I was sort of surprised to see this, but the Apex team attended 22 in-person conferences across the globe, right? From Apex Connect to Kscope, Oracle Cloud World to Apex World. There's just been so many conferences and then meetups and other in-person events. So we do connect with customers quite often. But if you ever want to reach out to us, our entire PM team and really the Apex team is at your service. So we're here to help. We want to help you be successful. The third question, this is a good one. Where can we go to find help from the community when I'm stuck? So there's a lot of resources that Oracle provides to sort of get help, especially from the Apex broader community. So the first thing I want to emphasize is really the Apex developer community is a global community. It's not just a sort of like a phenomenon that's in the North in Americas or only in like English speaking countries or whatever it might be. It's really a global thing. And, there's conferences across the globe, but also we are expanding our Apex office hours program to really cover a wider audience than we have. So for example, right now we have the global Apex office hours, which is the session you're watching right now. But we also have office hour sessions in different languages. So we have them in Arabic, in Portuguese, in Spanish, and we'll very soon be launching Apex office hours in Romanian. We're also going to have an office hours style series on, speaking directly from customers, sort of learning about them, sharing their use cases. And that's called the Business Innovations with Apex. And again, more ways for you to sort of learn how others are using Apex. But another really big one is the Oracle Apex Hours JPAC series. So we have this series right now. It's, we call it the Global Apex Office Hours, but it's at, 10 a.m. Eastern on Thursdays. And there's a whole part of the world where that time zone and that time slot is not that convenient, right? It might be 8:30 at night. You might be, like trying to go to sleep. And I know that a lot of people stay up and attend this session. So first, I appreciate you joining this, but we want to make it easier for more people to attend, our office hours and learn from the same great content that we have from the same team, right? It's going to be the Apex team presenting content. You'll learn about, more regional customers, but really the content isn't be appropriate for everyone. And we're going to launch this very soon. You can learn more about it on the Apex website. You'll hear more about it on our social media. So that's another way we're sort of connecting with customers, but also you can reach us on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, where we try to be available in any channel we can. One more thing to this, the last thing I want to say is there's the Oracle community forums. So if you go to community.oracle.com, there's the forum there, and the Apex forum is actually quite popular. There's hundreds of thousands of posts there, so a lot of content. I am proud to mention that very soon, the Oracle community forums, which are currently based on at least something called vanilla forums, that is going to be moved to an Apex application that's going to be running the forums for Oracle. So very soon, you'll be able to go to forums.oracle.com and take a spin of the new what the new forums experience is going to be like. It'll be a beta for a little while, so you can provide feedback, and the posts, whatever you create, will be deleted, and the content will sort of do a migration one more time. But it's a great way to sort of try out a public-facing application that's going to be a really optimized for public use as a PWA mobile app, whatever it may be. So I encourage you to check out forums.oracle.com very soon. It's not live just yet. The beta is not there yet, but I think very soon you'll see it. I believe that's all. Back to you, Jason.
Yeah, we're very excited for the new forums. Okay, and on to general questions. Part 2, page 3, question number 4. Back to you again, Shakib, hey? Yeah.
I really thought that was it. Okay.
No, one more.
This is an easy one. Right now, we have the App Gallery tab in Apex, and you can click on that, and you will see all of the starter applications we offer. So these are applications where they're sort of ready to go. It's a point solution. You can install it, and you can sort of run with it, or you can go and make changes and sort of adapt it to your business needs. So there's a collection of applications called starter apps. There's another tab for sample applications, and there you'll see applications that demonstrate feature functionality. So if you want to learn more about charts, like how Hillary described earlier, you can just go to that tab, download the app, and you have it right there. If you wanted to learn more about dynamic actions or reporting or whatever capabilities, those are the sample apps. You'll also find in there the universal theme reference application, which shows you all the, all the templates, all the permutations, how you can, extend universal theme. That's all there. And very soon you'll find the sample PWA app. Finally, there's a section for custom apps. So if you wanted to go and load your own, if there's another repository, you could sort of load that. So if you wanted to have apps that you distribute within your company, you can build a manifest file and load that in. And very soon, I hope that, maybe in the early parts of next year or sometime, we will have additional applications. Like we want to continue to grow our sample applications like suite, but also provide utility applications as well, so that these might not be something that you want to use to extend or as part of your business, but maybe it's to help you do your Apex development. Short answer, go to Apex or sign into your Apex workspace, click on App Gallery, you'll see all the apps. All right, I think that's really it, Jason.
Yes. No, that's great. So that's the end of the questions that we're able to pre-prepare and work with, but we have a lot of questions on the Q&A of Zoom. I don't know if we want to take a couple moments and look at some of those outstanding. I don't see any marked as answer live. Whole bunch here. What do you think, Shakib? Anything you can pick out that we might be able to answer in the time remaining?
Yes, there's a few really good ones in here. Let me just take a look. Here's one from Morton. Any chance you can prioritize the drag and drop plugin when you take a look at the FoEX plugins? Would love a native drag and drop that just works. So I can answer that one, and I can pass it on to Peter if you want to. Actually, Peter's not here, so I'll
Peter,
I'll take this. Thanks for sort of supporting this, or like sort of sharing your feedback. I think it's a great idea. We can sort of we want this community engagement. So we'll take a look. We have looked at this. It does quite a lot right now. The drag and drop plugin, you can sort of do it for rows. You can do it for different items. You can even drag from one region to the other. So we sort of need to find a way that we can really bring this kind of capability in a way that's more broader and that's more accessible, right? It really have to take a lot of things into account. But thanks for showing your support.
So one question I'm going to read out loud here from Paulo Cunzo. Are there plans to allow Apex to be a SPA? And to me, I believe that's a single page application. I've seen this question asked all the time, and it just blows my mind because you can already do this. I mean, I've made some apps that are single pages with a whole bunch of, server-side conditioned regions that are really long. So this is already possible. I'm not sure really what everyone wants to Apex to be able to make more possible. Any ideas on that? I mean, Apex is a Swiss Army knife, right? You can do pretty much anything you want to do. How easy is it to make it work? That might be another answer to come along based on the challenge, but it's definitely possible to do that already. I guess maybe the spot problem is where the refreshing of some content is a bit challenging. Not everything can be refreshed dynamically.
There was one question about the Kanban board, which I wanted to add in the Slack chat, but fat fingers, and I clicked just the wrong the wrong button. There is an example for that. So if you're interested in Kanban boards, have a look on apex.world plugins and have a look for a community plugin which implements a Kanban board. I wanted to add the link to the Q&A, but after you press the wrong button, you can't do that anymore. But just apex.world. Then go to plugins, search for Kanban, and you will find something.
I did want to answer a question that I saw in the Q&A from anonymous attendee about ways of sort of making applications responsive using Apex tools rather than CSS and HTML. And if I understand this correctly, you're trying to build an app that's responsive, but you don't want to write the HTML and CSS to do so. So if you're using universal theme, which 99% of the time you probably are, if you've used Apex recently, the theme is designed to be responsive out of the box. So most of the components should automatically sort of, shift or respond to the screen resolution and stack or, re-layout themselves. So there are a few components that this will not be quite appropriate. So for example, if you have an interactive report, interactive grid, really any tabular report that has, 10, 20 columns, no matter what device you have, it's just not going to be a good experience. And that's where you may use some custom styling to adjust things or maybe, hide a few columns. There are ways of sort of doing this. We have like a column toggle report, which you can use for more control over your smaller screen devices. But generally Apex, the universal theme in Apex should provide you with responsive functionality out of the box. And you can go to the sample app and learn more about the utility classes to sort of have more fine-grained control rather than having to write your own CSS.
I got 5 minutes left on the clock. Anyone else want to take some other questions here?
While we find a question, I did want to share a few things. We have this Apex Ideas application, and one thing I did want to mention to the community, and really everyone that's going to be watching this, is there's ways of getting involved in the Apex community where you don't necessarily have to submit an idea, but you can also look at the content that's already there and show your support for it, right? Engage in discussion. It's really helpful for us to know, what other use cases you may have, or like, you might see something and say, hey, I really want this, but my use case is a little bit different. So when we look at ideas, or really when we talk to anyone, we try to identify what are sort of common pain points, problems that a lot of customers are experiencing, and how can we sort of solve that in a somewhat generic way that can be applied to a broader, a community of developers. So we might not do exactly what you're asking for. The feature might not make it exactly, or the plugin that we have, it might not be exactly one-to-one. But our intention is always to provide to sort of solve the broader use case and the larger problem, and make it generic enough that you can sort of customize it for your specific need, rather than building something that's very specific.
This might be a question for Karsten to answer better than I can, but the question came up about getting a query's where clause that comes from a filtered grid. Can we use open query context for that?
Oh, yeah, the question is about how. So the actual question is how to get the SQL, which was executed by a specific Apex component. And for historic reasons, we had such a function for interactive reports, right? Where you can get the SQL query, the actual SQL query of that very interactive report for the very session with the very configuration. However, as I was saying in the beginning, in the meantime, we have all sorts of data sources, right? So what if your interactive report is based on a REST data source? You don't have a SQL query now, which you could simply execute. Also, what I've seen multiple customers struggling with, the SQL query which Apex returns is full of bind variables. So when you are executing that, you have to bind them properly, right? And that does not mean do a string replace operation to replace the bind variables with the values, opening up SQL injection vulnerabilities, right? And a few other things. So taking this all into account, right, we found that it's not the right way to get the query which a component executed, then work with it and execute it on your own. The actual solution should be ask Apex to execute that region query for you and give you the resulting data, right? And that's what Apex Region Open Query Context does. You can call it for any region of your Apex application. It will take the query, it will apply all the bind parameters safely, safe and secure, right? Properly. It will execute the query and you will get a cursor-like handle back, which you can use to walk through the result and get every row and every column and post-process the data however you like, right? So, and for that reason, we deprecated that old Apex IR.getReport function, because let Apex do that, these things, because Apex takes the data source into account, it does all parameter binding correctly, and you always have a secure solution. And that's the reason, yes, please use Apex Region Open Query Context and always use that for that kind of requirements.
That's great. Karsten, thank you so much for that detailed answer. Everyone, I hope you enjoyed this session. I hope you got some value out of us answering some of the questions live with the team. We have more questions that are posted there in the Q&A that I'm told will be on the Office Hours webpage. So you'll be able to go there and see how the answers were posted here live. But beyond that, we all wish you the greatest of season, it is the holidays upon us here, and I know worldwide it's all done a little bit differently, but season's greetings to everyone. I hope you have a great holiday season, and we're welcoming in the new year here in 2023, and exciting things for Apex are coming, and we're just all so happy to have you in the community be here with us to help us just interact with you and be part of what makes Apex so great. And that's really it, everyone. I hope you have a great day, and thank you for coming. Goodbye, everyone. See you online, and see you at the next Office Hours.